What happens when a historic franchise goes through a never-ending drought? What happens when one of the NBA's biggest markets has a management incapable of keeping its fans happy? What happens when a must-win team doesn't win for decades? The New York Knicks are a franchise with one of the most patient fan bases in existence. Patient, you say? Yeah, just because the fans continue to stand up for their team, no matter the circumstances. And patient with a series of decisions that have been tremendously detrimental to the team. Let's see an example. Quick question. Who was the last guard as good as Jalen Brunson that played for the New York Knicks? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. Tick-tock. Time goes by. Well, have you found any candidates? Maybe not, because to find a guard of the quality of the current Knicks point guard, we probably have to go back to the 70s with Earl the Pearl Monroe. Simply put, the Knicks management has never been able to take advantage of the city's tremendous appeal. Living in Manhattan and playing in Madison Square Garden are luxuries that very few players in the league can afford, and yet the Knicks have never been able to materialize those fantastic conditions in free agents. And as crazy as it sounds, Brunson is the franchise's best guard in the last 50 years. A player who was a tremendous gamble by a GM who, for once, is doing a good job. Of the last 8 GMs in New York in the last 20 years, only 2 have posted a winning record during their tenure. Current team president Leon Rose, who's been in the position since 2020, is doing a great job of filling in for the vacant position left by Scott Perry. Other than the departed Perry, the only other winning GM was Glenn Grunwald, who was barely in charge for a little over a season in 2013. The other 6, including the legendary Phil Jackson, were unable to move the team forward. These GMs have been deciding the future of the Knicks since 2004, and by and large, none have been able to do it properly. But something's changed in the city that never sleeps. Rose has made a series of good decisions that have allowed the Knicks, for the first time in a long time, to have a hopeful future. And even though the arrival of one of their 2 stars, Julius Randle, came earlier, the forward was not the player who changed the course of the franchise completely. It was the aforementioned Jalen Brunson. But his arrival on the Knicks was no less rife with criticism.
No, I like it. Obviously, I think there was a bit of an overpay for Jalen Brunson.
The guard signing was one of the talking points of the offseason. Very few people were confident that Brunson was going to be able to maintain that performance he was able to deliver in the 2022 playoffs with the Dallas Mavericks, where he averaged 21.6 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 3.7 assists per game. A performance that would undoubtedly justify his contract of $104 million for 4 seasons, and those stats were far above the one he put up during his last regular season with the Mavs. But Jalen has not only met the expectations, but he completely pulverized them. The point guard's averaging 25.8 points and 6.4 assists per game this season, with a spectacular 42% from the three-point line. The Knicks and Tom Thibodeau are relying on the leadership of Brunson, who's become a true floor general. And the truth is that his contract, as of today, is a real steal. Jalen's proven to be a max player since he started his tenure with the Knicks, and has become one of the faces of the Eastern Conference, having practically assured his participation in the All-Star game to be held this February in Indiana. A player capable of managing the tempo of the game, a master of the pick and roll, an extremely efficient scorer for his position, Brunson's capable of carrying his team when needed. Next to him, already facing his 5th season with the Knicks, is Julius Randle. The forward seemed to have also elevated his game while playing alongside Brunson. Julius is a tremendous player, that there's no doubt, and he's the second most important piece of the team. But his performance, even if it allows him to be a perennial borderline all-star at the very least, is still far from that of the best players in the league at his position. Randle's averages look just as spectacular as Brunson's, with 24.4 points, 9.2 rebounds, and 4.8 assists per game. But the truth is that, unlike the point guard, he's not a player you can rely on in moments of maximum pressure. Randle's biggest problem is his inconsistency. Just as he's capable of having great nights, he's also capable of the opposite. And precisely the aspect that separates a good team from a contender is consistency. The third most important asset in Leon Rose's project is the one he acquired just a few weeks ago in a trade with the Toronto Raptors. OG Anunoby is a player that had every GM in the league in love. The elite role player's perfect for any build, and completely versatile. He didn't come cheap, as the Knicks had to send such important pieces as RJ Barrett and Immanuel Quickley to Toronto, who were amongst the team's highest potential players. But in return, New York not only got its own version of Derek White, but also another asset that has great value in the NBA. Anunoby started his time with the Knicks on a high note, averaging 13.5 points per game at a very efficient rate and setting records for plus-minus. He's proven to be a crucial part of the team's great run during the first half of January, but the best part is that his role will be even more valuable in the playoffs, which is the time when New York will finally have to take a step forward. Despite shipping out big-time players to land the forward, the Knicks have other valuable pieces that fit perfectly into Thibodeau's system. Isaiah Harenstein and Mitchell Robinson populate the center position, offering a quality replacement. Two players whose biggest contributions is on the defensive end and who serve their purpose well. On the perimeter, the Knicks have other role players like Josh Hart with a more defensive contribution, or Donte DiVincenzo with a more offensive one. The former shooting guard of the Milwaukee Bucks and Golden State Warriors is finding continuity wherever he goes, and he only goes to good teams. This year, moreover, he's shooting an absurd 44% from 3 with almost 10 attempts per 36 minutes. Numbers that place him currently as one of the best shooters in the NBA. Or even Quentin Grimes, who, despite having lost importance in the team this season, seems to be waking up since the trade. This season's proving that what the Knicks accomplished last season was not a fluke. They managed to qualify for the playoffs for the 6th time in the last 22 years and made it into the second round for the first time since 2013. Despite that, many people believed that the Knicks were performing above their expectations and that they would soon hit reality. But despite the progress of other Eastern rivals like the Indiana Pacers, the team is staying in a comfortable area of the standings. However, there's a difference between the Knicks and the other top teams in the conference, and that is, they don't have a superstar. Now I know what you're gonna say, Jalen Brunson's considered a superstar by many fans around the league. But to me, being a superstar means being a player who can contend for MVP. Brunson's young, he's 27 years old, and he's going to continue to be the star of the Knicks for many years to come. But at the moment, he hasn't proven himself to be an MVP player just yet. Now that doesn't mean he can't be one in the future. And we're talking about the Giannis Antetokounmpos, we're talking about Jason Tatum's, and we're talking about Joel Embiid's. That highest tier of players who were able to perform with above-star consistency and turn their team into a contender. If that wasn't enough, the Bucks and Celtics have strengthened this summer with trades in which they've gained talent, and the Sixers, well, they'll be hoping Embiid doesn't get hurt during these playoffs. But the truth is that as of today, it seems more likely that one of these three teams could end up reaching the finals than the New York Knicks, at least on paper. And that's not counting the perennial underdog, Jimmy and Spo's Miami Heat, who will once again enter the play-in on the buzzer and whose role players will become superheroes for a month. For the Knicks to knock off these teams, they're gonna need something else. Something they probably aren't going to receive in a trade because these types of players are pretty hard to come by. What they need is a superstar. They need one of their players to step up and lead one of the best defenses in the league, but offensively. And the candidate is really obvious. While Brunson may not be a superstar, he has the makings of one. His scoring ability is incredible, and he's proven on many occasions to be able to get hot and elevate his team's play when his teammates need it. A player with a unique skill set, surprisingly great athleticism, and the attitude to become the Big Apple's pick. But the question is, can Brunson do this night in and night out? Because that is what makes him a superstar, and that's what could turn the Knicks into a real contender.